So welcome to everyone that's joined us this evening. Welcome to our two speakers, Elizabeth and Escata. Welcome to Rebecca, Camille, Cyrus, and Borel. Thank you for joining on time. We are going to give about 3 more minutes to allow more people to join us, and we will start then. While waiting, I would really like to know where everyone is joining. Cyrus Bele, where are you joining us from? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak, or you can put it in the chat. Hello, Cyrus, are you saying something? You're unmuted. Okay, I can't hear you. Same with Camille, Rebecca. Oh, hello, Anna. Welcome, welcome. So nice to see you.
Hello, just listening in today.
You're very welcome. Can you tell us where you are joining us from? Feel free to say it or put it in the chat as you wish. More people coming into the chat. Hello to Aristide. Nice to see you, Aristide. Hello, Achille.
Hello.
And
Nice.
Frida. Jonas Ferdinand. So all those who are joining us now, we are simply welcoming people and giving. Now we'll give it 1 more minute because people are still joining.
How you think where you start?
We'll start shortly. Very well.
Okay.
Please use the chat to tell us where you're joining us from. I think it will be quite nice to know how dispersed our audience is tonight. Wow, Mustafa is joining us from Niamey in Niger. Wow. And Rebecca from Nairobi, Kenya. Achille Kiate from Sherbrooke, Canada. So far, no reader from Douala, Cameroon. Cyrus from Yaoundé, Cameroon. Another person in Lausanne, Switzerland, that's William. And Aristide from Douala, Cameroon. Wow, we are really spread out today. I'm also in Douala, Cameroon. Where is Elizabeth and where is Escata? Escata is in Douala. Okay. Borel, also in Douala. Okay. And the Elizabeth is in?
I just put it in the chat, but yeah, Germany.
Okay. What an international audience we have here. That's interesting. And I know that more people will join us, but we do have a well-planned couple of hours to spend together, and I think it's a good time to start. I'm going to share my screen. And please let me know if you can see my screen, PowerPoint. Give me a thumbs up, or you can unmute yourself. Can you see my screen? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So welcome to our session with the theme Business Analysis Agility with Eskata Mutu and Elizabeth Amwamu. We'll get to know them very soon, but this is the way I want to start. By introducing myself very briefly as your host this evening. And my name is Florence Ndoom. I'm an IT business analyst and also a project manager, agile leader, and consultant. I have with IIBA Cameroon, the organization hosting this meeting. I'm a vice president for professional development in English. Please feel free to connect with me. This is a little bit about who I am. Anybody who wants to introduce themselves, tell us briefly who they are. We already know where you're joining from, but you can tell us briefly who you are. Anybody else? Just take a couple of people who are willing. Isn't there anyone who wants to unmute themselves and present themselves a bit? Okay, no problem. We will have other opportunities to interact. But I will start by presenting the agenda for tonight. Starting with welcome and ground rules. We'll see the ground rules shortly. We'll have a brief introduction to IIBA Cameroon. We'll have a conversation with our speakers. Apologies for that typo. We'll have a Q&A. We may have a virtual networking session depending on how things go. And we will have an interesting quiz at the end with opportunities to win a prize. Then we'll close. It's 2 hours, but I promise you it passes very fast. So let's start with the ground rules. When you are not speaking, please mute your mic because of the background noise that comes through. If you want to intervene, you can raise your hand or use the chat. But you will have a chance specifically for Q&A afterwards. And whenever you speak, please introduce yourself and let us know who you are, because we also want this to be a networking event. Let other people know you, get to know other people. The next point is this session is recorded. So if you have any issue with that, unfortunately, you'll have to leave the meeting. However, the recording will be available afterwards if you want to watch. The next thing is that we will be taking photos, screenshots during the meeting, and we will at some point take a group photo. This will require you to open your camera. So if you're not comfortable with that, please do let us know directly. You can contact me directly, and we will use this content for communications around the event afterwards. So if you're not comfortable, it's no problem at all. Let us know and we'll make sure that your image is removed from anything that we post afterwards. 2 last important rules. Be kind and open. We are here to learn together. It doesn't have to be serious. It really doesn't have to be. Let's be open to each other, what each other has to share. Let's give each other that space, and that's the way we will be able to get the most out of it. And that connects to participating and enjoying the event. It's Friday. Let's enjoy this. Okay, with that, I want to introduce you to IIBA Cameroon. IIBA Cameroon, as I said earlier, is the host or organizer of this event tonight. And IIBA Cameroon is the International Institute of Business Analysis in Cameroon. It is part of the broader IIBA, which exists globally. And the focus of IIBA Cameroon is to develop the business analysis profession in Cameroon specifically, and to help organizations achieve better outcomes, especially in Cameroon. IBA Cameroon has existed for 4 years now. As of today, we have 79 members, and 12 of those are certified. And the number is increasing because there are some people who are seriously preparing to get certified. And by certified, I mean has obtained one of the IIBA business analysis certifications. If you want to get in touch with IIBA, we have an office in Douala, near Sik Kakao. We also have a LinkedIn page, IIBA Cameroon chapter, a website, and a phone number you can reach us with. I think one of my collaborators will post this information in the chat for you as well. Some of the activities we do to develop the business analysis profession in Cameroon are represented here. So we do trainings in business analysis tools and techniques. We do professional exchanges such as this one. We call them after work events, which we do online like this, and in person in Douala, soon to go to Yaoundé, we hope, and other cities, of course. But the purpose is that we get professionals together to exchange and enrich each other. We also do promotion activities where we go to either schools or companies or events and inform people about the business analysis profession. We do something else called certification study groups, where you have the star, because this is one of our most important activities. And this is where we help people obtain business analysis certifications. We have a couple of them going on at the moment until May. And once they are done, we'll start a new series of study groups for the next 3 months, May, June, July. So if you are interested in joining one of these study groups, don't hesitate to get in touch. The next thing we do is we offer consulting services. Remember I said we help organizations achieve better outcomes. And that means we actually do partner with organizations to help them achieve their goals. So we offer that possibility. And finally, we have strategic partnerships. And we have these with a variety of entities. With GCAM, for example, for those who know GCAM, they bring together the enterprises of Cameroon, and they can influence the direction of these enterprises in the country and their success. We also have one with 10 000 Codeurs, which is an Africa-based entity helping young people equip themselves with digital skills to have successful careers. And we have one with PECB, which is a certification body and training body. And we have one with the Africa Development Club, which also brings together enterprises with a common goal to help each other. And there are more in the pipeline. Our President William is very active. When it comes to partnerships, he always finds a way to bring more and more interesting ones. So this is how we sustain the profession in the country and continue to develop it through these different axes. Well, I was speaking about trainings earlier on. One of them that you should take note of is a training in JIRA. I said we do train people in business analysis tools and techniques, and JIRA is one of the most interesting ones of the moment, and actually, especially when you're working in agile environments. So you may find this interesting. We have it in French on Monday. However, there will be another one in English, but the date will be communicated very soon. Next, we have the BA of the month, which is a recognition we give every month to one business analyst. And this business analyst is voted by their colleagues, their collaborators, who recognize that they're doing excellent work. So we have this every month. You have the opportunity to vote someone. It's a very simple process. A link will be shared for that. I hope that you can do that by the 23rd of March, because that's the deadline. But yes, it always helps someone to see that they're being recognized. So please give that honor to your colleagues or collaborators or friends who you know are doing excellent work. That is it. That's what I'm going to emphasize today. But we have our LinkedIn page, as I mentioned earlier, where all of this information is laid out all the time. So follow us and you will get all the information you need. Now, let me stop talking about IIBA and all that, and let's come to the topic of today. Business analysis agility is our team. Okay, business analysis. I didn't tell you what business analysis is. For those who don't know it, you may be wondering, what is she talking about? Well, this is business analysis. It's an approach that enables change by identifying needs and recommending solutions. That is a simple way to understand business analysis, but that is essentially what business analysis is about. It enables change, whether in enterprises or teams or projects. And it does that by identifying needs. There are always needs, there are challenges, there are opportunities, and there's a vision that the entity has that they want to achieve. So business analysis identifies those needs, recommends solutions to those needs, and in that way enables change. That's business analysis on one hand. Now, Agile, what is Agile? Very simply said once more, it's an approach to project management, an approach to delivery, an approach even to operational work, a way of thinking, a way of acting, but one which emphasizes flexibility. You hear it in the word agile, agility. And continuous improvement is absolutely key in agile, and collaboration. Here it says collaboration with the customer, but it also means collaboration with teammates and all of that. That's what agile is in simple terms. It's about flexibility. It's about continuous improvement. Before that, I just want to let you know that IIBA, among its certifications, has one called Agile to work in agile spaces, in agile projects. It equips them to be able to do that effectively. So just if you're interested in that, get in touch with us. Now, the moment you have been waiting for, the reason why you joined. The two speakers now, because we're going into discussion mode, no presentations. And I would love to see Escarta and Elizabeth's faces while we start. Are you there? Yeah. Elizabeth is ready. Let me see. Is Escarta there? Is Escarta connected? I suspect the network issue. But I know he will connect. I do apologize in advance. There could be interruptions in the network or power issues. It's our reality at the moment, but whatever happens, the show goes on. Okay. Why is there a whiteboard loading? Just a second. I don't know. All right. That's surely a mistake. Okay, but we'll start with Elizabeth, who is connected until Escato joins us. So, Elizabeth, I intentionally did not introduce because I wanted you to introduce yourself in your own words. So, who are you, Elizabeth? Can you tell us more about yourself?
Thank you, Florence. And yeah, good evening to everyone. I am Elizabeth Amwamu, as Florence mentioned, and currently working as a Scrum Master and a product manager in a pharma industry. But my degree is in communication and communication and public relations, and I'm currently pursuing an MBA from Quantic School of Business and Technology. So a lot going on. But basically, a background in my work is currently 7 years in project management, both in Agile and also basically the waterfall way of working. I'm a certified Scrum Master, certified Scrum Product Owner, and also a certified Digital Health Product Manager. And during my free time, I enjoy music and recently hiking. So walking around different places and getting to learn new things. And honestly excited about the possibilities that the MBA that I'm doing, together with my experience in this and even this interaction with business analysis has to offer. Yeah.
That's really nice. Good to know you. Are there any projects that you are interested in for the future that you'd like to share?
I think that goes back to the abilities that the project that I'm doing right now and also the MBA would be able to, introduce in the next year or so. So the projects that I'm working on are currently in the organization and mostly can't speak about them. However, how exciting they are, I'm limited in that. But yeah, I'm hopeful that I will be able to share more that I do privately for my own development, yeah, in the future.
All right, thank you very much. And please, everyone, pay attention because I mentioned we will have a quiz at the end, and the questions in that quiz will be taken from anywhere in this event. So pay attention and you will get a prize. And thank you, Elizabeth. I hope that you're open to people connecting with you on LinkedIn and wherever else to continue to engage.
Yeah, definitely. I'm open to that. Please feel free to send in a request and I would be happy to connect and get to learn what you do too. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth. Escata, welcome back. We will not know what happened. We know.
Yeah, the challenges of the continent.
Le continent. Okay. So we just heard about Elizabeth, who she is. So we would like to know you as well, Escata. Can you tell us about yourself?
Yeah. All right. So thanks, Florence, for this, and I want to thank the IIBA chapter for inviting us as a guest to take part in this event. So I am Buto Escata Brino, a senior business analyst. I have been doing business analysis for the past 7 years. So my experience span across telecommunication and the finance sector. So I have a degree in software engineering and a couple of agile certification. So I'm certified product owner professional and a Scrum Master. So within my year of experience, I've had the opportunity to work on different projects that has really fine-tuned my experience as a business analyst. So when I'm not doing business analysis, so I am coding. This is one thing I like doing a lot. I'm a software engineer by education, and I keep these skills moving on by building software for some clients. And so one thing I really find interesting about building software as a business analyst is you get to understand the business need and build something that really speaks to those needs. What I'm looking at for the future, it's one field that it's coming up, and all of you must have heard about this, is AI, and especially how AI is going to influence the field of business analysis. So how can I, a business analyst, leverage on AI to optimize the way I'm doing my business analysis activities and optimize and the way I'm providing value to the end user? So I'm quite keen around how AI is going to impact and what will be the impact on business analysis field as a whole. So that sums up to who I am. Thank you, Florence. Back to you.
Thank you, Escata. And I'm sure that there are other people here who are also interested in seeing where AI will take them. I hope you are open to people connecting with you as well on LinkedIn and wherever.
Yeah, obviously. Come, we talk about it and see how we positioning ourselves right for the future. Because AI brings a lot of uncertainty. The more we understand, the better we are able to adapt and take advantage of that technology.
Thank you. With that, we know a little bit more about our two speakers. So let's start getting into the real stuff. Elizabeth, you told us you are a Scrum Master, a certified Scrum Master, alongside other things. Could you tell us what that really means in your day-to-day? What do you do?
Okay. I had the intro that you gave, and I was happy that you captured a little bit of what is agile, so I don't have to go so much into it, but maybe to just wrap up what you talked about, because Scrum is something that falls under agile. And basically, as an umbrella, we know that agile is a methodology or primarily used to for software development, but then it spans in other areas too. What does this really mean? Agile emphasizes on flexibility, collaboration, and customer centricity. And for it to be able to be operationalized, it has different frameworks under it that we can work with to ensure that we work in an agile way. So one of the key things that Agile stands for is iterative development. And what does this mean? This basically means that we break down projects to manageable units, and we do this in sprints and or iterations. So how do we make this possible? Through one of the frameworks, which is Scrum. And in this particular sense, this is where I come in. Scrum in itself is a framework of Agile that focuses or that builds upon three pillars, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So transparency in itself, these are things that it provides opportunity for everyone to be aligned on the things that are being worked on. And this is provided throughout the whole process of using it as a framework in itself, how it's. We talk about inspection. This is what it means, inspection. It provides opportunity where the users or the stakeholders are able to evaluate the work that you do and then give you feedback. So when you get this feedback after inspection, we go to adaptation. We are able to adapt the product development based on the feedback that we have received from our users or our stakeholders. In this case, I work in a digital innovation lab. What this means is that we are all set up in an agile way of working. We all work agile. We are set up in a way that we have a bigger mother organization, and before they launch anything in the market, before they even invest in any solution, if it's risky and nobody knows how it works, or there's nothing in the market that looks like this, they come to us. So our whole mandate as the lab is to de-risk all the ideas and all the initiatives that the business wants to invest in. And de-risking here just basically means that we are able to work on this idea, evaluate it, see, is it something that can survive in the market? I will tell us how to do this much more better. But currently I work in a Scrum team, And a Scrum team is based over product owner. This is the person who focuses on maximizing the value of the product. And then it's also based on the Scrum Master, that is me, operationalizing the Scrum in itself to help us build the product. And then it's also based on developers. Developers is a code name, basic, but we have other roles that come in to help us achieve the value that we need to achieve. So what do I do? In Scrum, as a framework, we have events that we have to abide by to help us be able to operationalize the three pillars: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Some of these events would be maybe, because I said previously, we work in sprints, in small chunks. So we work in 2-week sprints. And when these sprints happen, we have sprint planning, where we come together, we plan what we will do within these 2 weeks. And as we are planning what to do in these 2 weeks, we also have daily stand-ups. We meet on a daily basis for 15 minutes. And when we meet, we touch on progress. What is happening? What are some of the obstacles that are coming up? And how do we remove them? Then we also have sprint reviews. After every 2 weeks, we go in front of our stakeholders, we present what we have done, they look at it, they scrutinize, they give us feedback so that we are aligned. When we get this feedback, after 2 weeks again, we have our sprint retro immediately after the review, and we come together as a team. We look at what we have done in these 2 weeks. How did we work? What did we achieve? Were we able to meet our goals? What were the problems? And how do we make it better, so that we maximize the value of the product in the next 2 weeks? And as all these things go on, we also have something called product backlog refinement. This is something that we maintain every 2 weeks. We have to maintain the product backlog. What is that? That is a list of deliverables for the product. So as much as we're getting feedback from the users and from the stakeholders, we are using this feedback to better prioritize the things that need to be done for the sprint. In all this that we do, these aspects help us achieve or be able to get at the end of 2 weeks. What do I do as a Scrum Master? I've talked about what Scrum is and what are some of the events that Scrum has, and what are some of the artifacts that we have that help us manage what we do, our sprint backlog and our product backlog. But then as a Scrum Master, I help operationalize the Scrum framework in itself. These events have to happen. How do they happen? How do I create the room for adaptation and inspection? How do we define our definition of done? That as much as we are working in an agile manner in these 2 weeks, what exactly can we say tangibly that we have been able to achieve in these 2 weeks? And what is acceptable? So setting the acceptable criteria to help us manage our work and also manage the expectations of the stakeholders. Another aspect is also coaching. So as much as it's easy to say, oh, we need to do this events, we need to do this and that, Agile is a mindset. Unless the mindset changes, it's really difficult to work in an Agile manner. So the constant coaching has to happen, both for the product owner. How does he keep an eye on the product value? How do we maximize the product value? And at the same time, the team. How do we continuously create opportunity that for the product to be able to be inspected efficiently, but at the same time to be transparent enough so that if there's a problem, we handle it as early as possible. One of the key tasks of a Scrum Master is to remove the obstacles. So I have to know the obstacles are there for me to do something about it. So if transparency is key, we are able to tackle problems way faster, way quickly, before they become a big problem. We are able to remove it so that within these 2 weeks, the team is fully concentrated on building the product. And yeah, there's much more, but for now, I think I can leave it there because I've said a lot. Florence, I give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was very elaborate and detailed. And I'm sure that a lot of us could understand what a Scrum Master actually does on a daily basis. Thanks for that. And I would like to hear from you, Esther. You have a background in software development, you're certified in some of these agile roles. But more than that, you are a business analyst, a senior business analyst at that. So what does that mean for you on a daily basis?
First thing, right? As a business analyst, the key responsibility to transform the business need into technical solutions, right? We do this in various ways, depending on the organization within which we work, but the flow is the same, right? So as a BA, from a day to day, what I do, right? So first, coming back to the dependency on the organization, certain organizations have the way it's structured, and this define how business analysts do their work, right? For some organization, the BA will be interacting directly with the end user, getting the requirements or the needs from the end user and working upon it. For some organization, they have business units that feed the requirements, right, to the BA. The BA starts work on those. But looking at the different contexts within which I've worked, I'm going to talk around how we're doing business analysis within those various contexts. So the first context is within the telecom. So this we had units that provided what they need, and then us as BA liaison between them, the business unit, and our technical team building the requirement. So part of the activities that I'll do as a business analyst, elicitation and gathering of requirements, right? So I use different tools and techniques in order to identify in order to gather the requirement. So workshops, surveys, interviews, and even document reviews, right? Within the current context I'm working, we have a shared repository where approved requirements are being saved. Then I can leverage and see what requirements I can reuse in the project I'm working on. So the other thing, in order to succeed, right, as a BA, it's stakeholders engagement and how you collaborating with the stakeholders. So it's critical to identify the stakeholders that are going to be impacted by the project you're working on, and engage them in such a way that you can get their input and use it. You can get the necessary input required for you to document the requirement. And also one key thing is that if you don't identify a stakeholder that has a need that is impacted in one shape or form for that project, you identify them late, is going to be a problem in the way you'll be doing the business analysis. So it's good to identify these stakeholders upfront, engage them, get them to provide the requirements necessary for you to have an exhaustive list of requirements. The other point I'm going to touch in, if you don't get these stakeholders aligned, you don't get them to provide the feedback, then when you're going to be validating and signing off this requirement, obviously they're not going to sign the requirement, and this is going to be a problem for you as a business analyst. And the next part is how you the different processes that are impacted by this change. What are the opportunities for improvement? You model the requirements and probably do a solution recommendation. Now, after this, there are two steps, right? Based on, again, the context within which you're working. So for some companies, for some companies, after you've gathered this requirement, you get them approved, you hand them over, right, to the solution architect, who take this over, do the solution design, and follow up with the project manager for the implementation team to implement this. But in some other contexts, you have to hand over, right, the recommended solution to the implementation team, work with the implementation team for the delivery. And the next item, right, and this is also influenced by organization, is involvement in testing. So when you've handed over the requirements to the solution architect, they have done the design, and this has been implemented, you're going to get involved in the testing. For some contexts, BA actually do some of the UAT. In some contexts, you have dedicated teams that are responsible for doing the UAT. But you need to make sure that what has been delivered is aligned with the business expectations, and you actually providing a solution that address the business need. So with the transformation, right, I find myself as a BA working very closely with the product owner, because now the transformation has come to, they're looking at how to optimize the way the teams work, how to deliver faster, how to mitigate risk, and Agile does that in a very exceptional ways. Elizabeth has talked about some points to that. But I find myself working with the product owner, trying to refine the requirements that have been gathered, help them in order to provide inputs for them to better prioritize this requirement so that the requirements with the greatest value can be delivered to the end user. So in a nutshell, those are some key activities that I do on a day-to-day basis as a BA. Back to you, Florence.
Thank you as well for that detailed explanation. I'm sure the BAs in the audience would have recognized some of the key phases in your process, but also we got to understand what it looks like in your specific context and how things are being transformed, as you said. So thank you for that, Escata. Cyril says thank you to you both. Let's go to our next set of questions. Right, this is the heart of our discussion. Agility and business analysis. Business analysis in agility or vice versa. Can we have both? I want to start with you, Elizabeth. Have you had to use business analysis in your different roles and especially in your current role? Or have you had to work with business analysts?
Thank you, Florence. So we don't have the role of business analyst in the organization that I work in at the moment. And the business analyst role is incorporated into the work that we do. So, and I know this is a unique case because as I go back again to the fact that I work in an innovation lab, and this is quite different setup, right? And so I mentioned before that our main mandate as an organization at the moment is to de-risk solutions and also possible ideas before the business invests in it or before the business decide to put big money in there. And we are guided throughout this process by certain things that we work with. So for instance, in this case, before we work on any solution or as a business brings us any idea, we are able to like go through this idea. So it's a 1-year process. But first to say we have 1 month of discovery, us researching this idea, going through this idea and looking what is the possible ways this solution could be made, or is there anything available in the market that could solve this problem? So there are 3 key things that we work by, and this is desirability, feasibility, and viability. And I will break this down, it will make much more sense. So under desirability, we are looking at what is the problem. So for this, we are able to go back to the business who has brought us this idea, and we do a lot of user research to understand what exactly is the problem. And is the solution that they're proposing the best one? Is it the one solving the business problem really? Or is there something else that could solve this problem even faster and even more budget efficient or whatever it is? We also, at this point, we also try to discover who does this problem affect, if there's a problem, and who will benefit from this if we are to bring up this solution. This is very important because then it helps us not invest in products that nobody wants and nobody needs in the first place. And then we are able to kill this thing very fast so that it doesn't go further and we don't waste resources. So when we have a tick on desirability, there's a need actually, and the business is suffering if this solution is not provided or this need is not solved. Then the second thing is feasibility. Is it feasible? Does the technology exist in the market? Is someone already doing this in the market? Can we go the easier route and partner maybe, or bring in this solution? And we may have answers here like, yes, maybe there's someone in the market, or no, there's no one in the market who is doing this. This technology, does it exist? No, it does not exist. Okay, that's another thing. How do we handle this? If it's not possible to build it, is the tech mature enough for it? We mentioned AI, we mentioned LLMs. These are things that we'll tap into to see, okay, large language models, can it be able to do this? Can we build an algorithm for this? But all this aside, the last thing that we have to confirm is the viability. Is this solution, if we manage to build it, if the tech exists or it doesn't exist and we decide to build it, is it feasible? And feasibility, we're looking at it in form of financial feasibility. How much value will it bring to the organization? Vis-a-vis the initial funding that the organization needs to give. Will it bring value? Is this something that can sustain itself? Can it make money? Can it fly in the market? You know, these are some of the questions that we have to constantly keep asking ourselves as we go through this 1-year journey of building this product. And if we don't get a satisfactory answer about the value of this product, whether is it saving cost or is it increasing, bringing in new revenue, or maybe we're even designing a new business model, you know, that doesn't exist yet, but it's good for the product, or maybe the business doesn't use this yet. So these are questions that we constantly have to interact with our stakeholders, constantly have to do the research, constantly have to experiment and test. So we test again on desirability, feasibility, and viability. Because if it's desirable and if it's feasible and it doesn't bring business value, there's no need to invest in it. If it ticks all these things and it actually brings value to the organization in terms of money or cost savings, that is something that we cannot assume, then we go ahead and say, okay, we have verified that all of this works or all of these tick, so we need to be able to invest in it. We can give a go ahead and the organization can, with confidence, invest in this business. So I listened to the description you gave me last time and we talked about business analysis, and I realized that this is something that is incorporated in our daily work throughout the life cycle of the products that we work with. Yeah. Back to
Sorry.
you.
Yeah. That's really good to know. I think we would not have thought about it on the surface, but to hear you describe it, business analysis is part and parcel of what you do. And that's quite interesting. Thank you, Elizabeth. Eskanta, now coming to you from your perspective as a business analyst. Business analysis, at least for those who use it and do it a lot, seems to be more known in the step-by-step style of the waterfall or predictive approach. So you as a business analyst, do you use agile approaches? And if not, are there situations where you think using agile approaches would have made things so much better?
Thank you, Florence. So first thing, right, it's context. You need to identify appropriate context and see what approach will be best to fulfill the needs for that given context. So that the approach, in fact, as a BA, you need to be able to identify such context, and it's good to have at least business analysis skills and some skills in Agile, so you can know how to execute the business analysis activities based on the context. So there are some contexts that are traditional way, right? Let me call it traditional way of going one step to the next will be most accurate, but there are other scenarios where that will not bring the value required to the business. So Agile deals with scenarios with uncertainty. We're trying to test to see if we can even do this, if it's feasible and not. So this is an element that you need to take into account when doing that assessment to see if you're going to go with the waterfall approach, let me call it that way, or you go with a more agile approach. So when you're doing business analysis, the waterfall approach, you have the different step of activities that you do as a BA. Once you gather their requirements, so you're doing this in your own space, right? As a BA, you engaging the stakeholders, gathering the requirement, documenting the requirement, getting modeling the requirements, designing the appropriate solutions that will go with this. then getting that requirement approved, then sending out that requirement either to the team that is going to be responsible for implementation or the solution architect to do the solution design. This approach, as I said, is there is no good, there is no bad approach, but you need to, as a BA, know what approach to use in what context. The approach that I find myself using of late, it's more a mix, right? So I try to see the different activities that I execute as a business analyst and see how I can do that in an agile way, right? Like as a BA, I gather requirement. I do elicitation and gathering the requirement. Once I gather that all those requirements, I move to the next step, right? But now, doing in an agile way, what I do is when I identify the opportunity to execute business analysis in an agile way, I engage my stakeholders, inform them that, you know what, this is the approach that I think doing business analysis for this project will bring the most value. So get them to be aligned, get them to give me their go ahead to apply this approach. Once I get this now, I start doing things bit by bit. What do I mean? Like for requirement gathering, I'll do a more iterative approach for requirement gathering, not gathering all the requirement at once, but rather gather a bit. Now, going back to what I said, this is based on the conversation I've had with my stakeholders. So my stakeholder, I'm going to tell them that this is the approach. You know, the challenge that cause a lot of stakeholders to be like, okay, you know what, we need to have a document with all our requirements before we can sign that document. Is because at the end of the day, the waterfall approach, if there is a change that comes in maybe during implementation, it has to go through the change management cycle. And this is something that is not always desirable for all the stakeholders. So they're like, you know what, we want to have everything documented and we'll sign that with everything, so that we know that if we're going to be doing the acceptance, we're going to be ticking our requirement versus what has been delivered in the solution. So you need to shift the mindset of these your users, which is what is critical for you to do business analysis in an agile approach. Shift their mindset saying, okay, this is what you're going to have. Always make sure that they're informed. So there need to be strong collaboration with the different stakeholders and good communication so that they know where you are at every point in time. So, okay, I'm going to gather this first set of requirements. We're going to model them, do a design for this. Now, you're going to approve this part, but we're going to work subsequently on documenting this other section. With this, when you get this buy-in, it's easy for you to now blend your traditional way of doing business analysis in a more agile approach. And doing this has really made, I've seen significant benefit of this, right? Because now we're more flexible in manage. I'm still doing business analysis, but I'm more flexible in the way I manage change, right? When there is change, at least we know that, okay, we're still documenting the requirement in this case. But as I said earlier, you need to identify the right context, because there are certain scenarios where you have to go the waterfall approach. You need that final signed version of that the requirement document for the team to take it into solution design. So identify the appropriate approach, make sure that you do proper communications with your stakeholder on the approach that you're going to use, leverage agile in the approach that the approaches that require agile, and you can do waterfall in the approaches that will not you can apply agile. And I believe doing this, you'll be more flexible as a business analyst, adaptable to change, and also ensuring that the stakeholder at the end of the day are getting the best of yeah, how will I put it, of the outcome of your work as a business analyst. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for that.
That's it.
Thanks for that, Escata. So, it doesn't mean that the waterfall approach is always wrong and the agile is always right. It depends on the context, as you say.
Yeah.
One
Yes,
of
as a
them stable
as
for
a
one
B
context.
as a BA, you need to identify that context and engage your stakeholders, let them know that, okay, this is the approach you're going to use, and then get their buy-in. Sometimes it's difficult, especially when you start in this approach, right? especially with stakeholders that are used to the waterfall approach, they were like, no, you know what, if we don't put this in the document now and we give a sign off, you're going to come back later and say, no, this requirement will not be delivered in this solution. We need to do a whole request for this now to be taken as a whole new project, and funding, time for delivery, and all of these come in, and the stakeholders are really not are not happy when they go with this approach. But as I highlighted, right, the best is to have that upfront conversation with your stakeholders, saying, okay, this is a process, and then once you get their buy-in, you apply that, and at any point in time, go back to them, look at ways that you can adjust. If there are certain areas of optimization, propose the approach them, get their buy-in, feed it back to the process, and that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Escata, for that. I will ask my last couple of questions to you both. So, to Elizabeth, you told us that your team and your organization doesn't have a role business analyst. And I have observed that typical agile teams like in Scrum don't have a role business analyst. However, you also showed us from your example that business analysis is part and parcel of the process, which means there is still a place for business analysis as a way of working, but also as a role. So what would you say to business analysts who want to work in agile teams like yours? What could make them successful? How can they prepare themselves for success?
Thank you, Florence. That's a good question, because as you were talking, I just thought about it. So we have one thing to be first to look at the roles, because the business analysis role in itself is divided among 3 roles within Agile. So we have the PO, who is looking at the value of the product, and he's gathering requirements for the product, and he's working closely with the stakeholders to ensure that all the requirements that are needed are there, right? And then we have also the Scrum Master, who is working together with the product owner to ensure that the value is maximized one way or another. So we are working also together in that aspect. And then also now, if you have a product manager, they are also focusing on the value of the product. So how do they maximize the value of the product in just a different scope, like the life cycle of the product? So this role exists, I say, but it is splitted among different roles currently in Scrum. So it will be the first point to understand the roles in Scrum and the responsibilities for these roles and how they tap into business analysis. Then that gives you an upper hand to know, do you still want to stick with the business analysis role, or can you tap into another role and maximize it on that, depending also, like Nkata mentioned, with the industry that you're in, but also at the same time, the type of projects you work on. Because CapEx projects, most of them cannot be worked in Agile. And as Nkata was talking, I remembered Stacy Matrix, which is one thing that we use to place different products and projects to see where do they fall? Can they be done waterfall, or do they require to be done in an agile way? And mostly also mentioned by Nkata before that, for it to qualify to be done in an agile way, it has to be uncertain. This means that we don't know how this product would look like at the end. So there's a lot of uncertainty. And the stakeholders who are coming in this space mostly are comfortable with risks, because you never really know what you're gambling with. It might be big, it might not be big. It might be useful, it might not be useful. So this is an area that we have to, before starting any project, we have to see what is the best framework to help us achieve this project. Is it Scrum, or is it Kanban? Or is it just the basic project management? Then we send it to the right department to do it, so that we don't have to over-engineer things that don't require over-engineering. But again, I would piggyback to the culture of the Scrum team and back to the pillars that make Scrum, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Again, for this to even be possible, a lot of things have to happen. there has to be trust within the team. And I'm not talking about trust like I trust you, you're a good person. No, I trust your capabilities. I trust that when you're given a task, you will do it to your level best. I trust in your skills that you're able to pull this through. So if I'm given a product or we jump into the ocean of uncertainty, I am sure that we are all doing everything that we need to do. So something like trust has to be there, openness. Challenges happen, you may hit roadblocks, but rising above that and being comfortable to share openly the challenges that you have really plays a big role. Then the team can be able to jump in and help you. We share the responsibility. If a product fails, if something fails, we fail together. There's no room to say it is the PO or it is the developer. Everyone falls. So this allows the team to be able to be more open if something is not going okay, so that we can handle it earlier on. We also have to be collaborative. There are some times in the products that I've worked on where we have, we need, let's say, a back-end engineer, and we also need a front-end engineer, and maybe we need a data engineer. And in this case, I only have a front end and maybe another front end. We don't have these two capabilities. And I've had my engineer stepping in and say, you know what, I'm not good in this, but I'm willing to learn. So what do I need to learn to ensure that we build this product? And as they're learning, they're also saying, okay, can we do pair engineering so that we work together, have calls, work together and make this product a success? Collaboration has to happen. And that is one thing that fuels the Scrum team or the agile ways of working. Another aspect is continuous improvement mindset. Sometimes you think that you have done it, you've gotten the right thing, and when you go to the review, the stakeholder says, I don't like this. In fact, it is not what I wanted. I don't want anything of any of this again. And you have to go back to the drawing board. Or sometimes you think you've gotten the thing and you haven't. So having that possibility of stepping right back into it, learning, being willing to learn and relearn and say, okay, let's go back at it without giving up is a good skill to have. One other aspect would be adaptability. We say adaptability like it's easy. It's not easy. If you have collected your 50 requirements and you swear by these requirements and you have signatures from every stakeholder, and then you realize that in sprint 5, this concept that you had does not work at all. And you have to go back and incorporate those learnings so that you're able to shift. And if you incorporate the learnings, it shifts you to north instead of south. And you have to communicate this to your stakeholders. But also you as a team have to be willing to carry that and say, okay, are we willing to explore this unknown area? So adaptability is something that comes in handy. Without you being willing to be adaptable, it's really tricky to work in this space. So I would say these are some of the skills that we need to have: adaptability, continuous improvement mindset, collaboration, and being willing to be uncomfortable. Because in uncertainty, there's a lot of uncomfort. there's no comfort. So you being uncomfortable with the possibilities is something that you have to get really quickly comfortable with lack of no good, better words to say it. But then it's a matter of, it comes with experience. And also the more you expose yourself to this kind of environment and working mode, you tend to learn very fast. So far, in regard to maximization of value, business analysis is for this. So it just means that it's the aspect of working within this area of agile ways of working that you need to tweak here and there, and taking the mindset and the values. Because without these, there's no agile ways of working. Yeah. I think that's pretty much for now. Thank you, Florence.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I retain two main things. On one hand, a business analyst can work in an agile team even if they don't have that role, because the value they bring can be expressed in another role, like Scrum Master, like Product Owner, Product Manager. So these are roles they can consider. And there are certain key values that can make them successful independent of the title they have. including trust, adaptability, table. Thank you so much for those valuable tips. I hope my internet is still stable. You can still hear me. And thanks a lot, Elizabeth. So my last question for you, Escata, would be what you would say to current business analysts who maybe are not working in Agile, who are trying to in one way or the other. What would you say is the best way for them to incorporate agility in their work so that they could be more successful as business analysts?
Thank you, Florence. So I won't touch on the things that Elizabeth has already said. Mindset, readiness to embrace change, which is critical to work in an agile context. But for me, I believe in baby steps, right? You first identify the areas that you can apply agile to in your current work as BA. And for me, one of those areas that I find it easy, and I will recommend other BAs to try this out, is requirement gathering. Embrace gathering requirement in an iterative approach rather than one shot gather everything, right? In an iterative approach. And in order even to, before you get to that point, right, I will still articulate on this point, stakeholders engagement. How are you communicating and collaborating with your stakeholders, making sure that they're informed on the approach that you're going to use for doing business analysis, and get their buy-in. So once they have their buy-in, gives you the opportunity to apply agility in certain areas of your work as business analyst. So second is how you engaging with stakeholders, as I just highlighted. The third one, in order for you to really embrace agility as BA, you need to stop thinking around, I'm just gathering this requirement, getting them signed off, and my work is done, right? You need to start looking at the value. What is the value of the activity that you're doing as a business analyst? How can you prioritize, right, this value when you engage in the business? What insight can you provide to the business to make sure that the outcome of your work as a business analyst actually bring value to them, and not only to them as a stakeholder, but also to the end user that is going to use that product? And lastly, articulating again on what Elizabeth said is a mindset of continuous improvement, right? Identify opportunity to improve, right? Learn new skills, especially as a BA. Be comfortable to be uncomfortable. Move outside of the traditional way of doing business analysis and step in how agile is helping the industry move forward. Learn some agile skills, right? You don't need to do everything at once. Do baby step. Take time, say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to focus on this aspect of agile. Take time to study it. If you have opportunity, or if in your organization you have teams that are doing projects in an agile way, propose to step in, right? To say, okay, you know what? I just want to step in, observe the way you guys are doing things, and I'll learn one or two things from there. So always take that opportunity if you have the chance to learn something new, learn something around agile, how you can leverage it, and always go back to your stakeholders. How what approach you're going to use for the activity or the project. I'm going to use project for the project that you're currently working on, and what benefit is going to be if you're going to apply that approach. Make them see the benefit so that they can easily give you their buy-in. And if you're doing this right, it's going to benefit you a lot, right? It's going to improve your responsiveness to change. One challenge, one difficult thing that we have as BA is change management, right? You don't always feel comfortable like, oh man, this requirement has been missed. We have to go through the change management process to bring this in. So if you adopt agile way of doing things, it's going to be easier for you to be responsive to change. It's also going to improve your collaboration, right, with the different stakeholders. Giving the different ceremonies around agile gives more opportunity for the team to come together to to discuss around the challenges I have around, with the projects I'm working on. And Elizabeth emphasized, right, build trust with the different stakeholder. And if you adopt this, right, the next point is you're going to deliver value faster. The whole concept around Agile is experimentation, right? And when you're experimenting, you're trying to go with the putting the least effort to get something to in the hands of the end user, and let the end user try it and give you feedback. Then you take this feedback and incorporate within the product you're working on. So that will be right, delivering value faster to be one of your drive that you want, that you have to embrace in order to be a better business analyst, or use leveraging business analysis in an agile context. And at the end of the day, right, when you apply all of this, you obviously have stakeholders that are more satisfied with the work that you're doing as a BA. So they're going to see you like a valuable contributor to the business, and value the work you're doing to deliver products or projects that meet their expectations. I think that's it for me. Some key points that I could highlight. Thank you. Back to you, Florence.
Thank you very much, Eskata. Really interesting points there. And I'm just going to say one that I retain very clearly is to identify the areas where bringing in agility could help you deliver value better and faster. So thank you so much for all of these tips. Thank you, Eskata. Thank you, Elizabeth, for answering all of my questions, which I know were very enlightening also for the audience. And now I'm going to let the audience ask their questions. I know agility is a hot topic, and you probably have a lot of questions coming your way. So now is the time for you guys in the audience. Please feel free to ask any question you have to both Elizabeth and Eskata. And I know that you could be experienced in any of these areas, so please don't hesitate to share your perspective as well. The floor is open to you. I know that there is already a question in the chat from Camille. And Camille asked, is it possible to be a business analyst if I don't have technical competency? So I'll let Eskata take this one.
Yes, you can be a business analyst without technical competency. But one thing that I would advise is domain knowledge, right? Having knowledge in a given domain is going to help you as a business analyst. So it's challenging at first, but you need to take time. If you're starting if you do business analysis in a context that is new, or in a domain that is new, take time to understand the specific how will I put it, context within which you're working. Take time to understand the business, how it's running. That will add value to you as a business analyst, because as I said, you don't need to have some technical skills to become a business analyst, but domain expertise in the area you're applying business analysis to will be an added advantage for you. I don't know if anyone has any other thing to add to that.
Okay, getting a thumbs up from Camille. Camille, would you please tell us who you are? We would like to know you as well. Hello?
Hello.
Yes? Yes, Camille.
Yes, my name is Tawa Kami. I'm student in Cameroon, National Advanced School of Public Works.
Okay, great. What do you study there?
Civil engineering.
Okay. Oh, interesting. I think it would be nice for us to have a discussion on agile in civil engineering, see what that looks like. Having buildings or structures in an iterative iterative manner. That would be interesting. Thank you, Camille. Let's see who else has a question.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So a set of questions from on the chat as well. Number one, how do you handle resistance from stakeholders who are reluctant to embrace agile practices? Elizabeth, maybe you want to take this one?
That's the question always. Thank you, Florence. The question always goes back to what value does the approach you're showing or the approach you're suggesting brings to the organization or to the project. So if you're not able to articulate this value, like I think Eskata gave a good example and he said, if you're able to prove that something works even faster, wouldn't the stakeholder be happier that doesn't have to wait for 10 months to prove this? Because if they have proven it earlier, then it's easier. In fact, even better if they're able to prove it doesn't work early, so that you kill this and focus on other things that bring more value. So it's always just about the articulation. How do you pitch the value that this approach that you're suggesting is bringing? Because that is one way in which that we get the buy-in from the stakeholder. And then also in this case, I would bring it back, localize it to how we work here and where the environment I work in. Most of the times when we suggest that this is the way to go, is backed up with data. So we do user research intensively to cover the ground. So when we say this is the analysis of the results and this is what we have found in the market, or this is what the users would need, or this is the framework that we are suggesting, it is backed up. So we'd say this is the most probable solution to take us faster to the output that we want, and then it is easier to get the buy-in from the stakeholders that way. Yeah. Thank you, Florence.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I also want to, from you, Eskata, what your perspective is on this question briefly, because I know you could also encounter this kind of resistance.
No, the approach is to put everyone on the table and ask what is priority. It's different stakeholders prioritize requirements differently, and having the opportunity to put everyone on the table, discuss the advantages and the disadvantages of bringing in or changing or managing that particular aspect will give visibility to everyone, and then it's easy for you to say, no, you know what, let's go with this and allow this. So my approach is bringing everyone on the table. We see it, because at this point you can't show value. At this point, the best thing is to bring everyone to discuss and define which really its priority and what is the benefit to the ultimate end user if you prioritize a given stakeholder requirement over another. So in the nutshell, that is what I'll have to add to that.
Okay, thank you, Eskata. I will move to the next question. There's one from Borel Kenny. How can the agile approach be effectively implemented in a project when the team is not accustomed to it, while also managing challenges like tight deadlines, frequent priority shifts, and a distributed workforce across multiple time zones? Who wants to take that?
I can take that, and then maybe definitely scatter and you could add more. There was once, I think 2023, I was working on we had a project in India. And remember, we are based in Germany, and the product owner and the SME were from the Indian office, the Indian market, and then the rest of the people that were working, developers and all this, were in Germany, Germans mostly. So we are definitely, the first thing was clash, because the business in India is working waterfall, because their focus is also very different. They need to run sales, they need to make sales, they need to different priorities. And then when you come to us, we are used to working agile. So we know agile is the best way, and we have people saying this is our way of working. The other ones are like, this is our way of working, and I'm like, okay, so we need to find a middle ground. And I think that the most work went into breaking it down as to why we would need to pick this framework or so for us to work with. And then realizing that the others in my Indian office, not that they didn't want to work in Agile, just that they didn't know and they thought it was just time wasting. And they thought that there's a lot of meetings, they have too many meetings in their calendar, they don't want any more Agile meetings. So these are some of the things that came up. So when I first came into the project, the first thing was like, okay, sit down with the whole team and understand where is the resistance coming from. Is it that someone is afraid they have 10 more meetings in their calendars than they already have and they don't want that? Is it that they don't understand how the framework works or why we work with this? Because these are two different pain points. And after having these conversations with the team, I realized, one, it's the meetings, they already just feared. They were like, we have too many meetings, we don't want no more meetings. The second thing was like, we already know what we want. So you just go ahead and help us build it. We have the lab, which is like, no, we have to first de-risk this idea to see, is it even needed in the first place? And when you ask a stakeholder this, they're thinking you're saying that they don't know what they want. So how did I solve this, or how did we solve this? First things first, I did a very simple crash course on Scrum to give the team an understanding of what Scrum is and why we use it and how is it of benefit for us to work in this framework or to work in this way so that we're able to maximize the value that we want with the product. Also had to break it down, a small crash course of why we need to follow the steps that we talked about before: desirability, viability, and feasibility. And that no matter, sometimes we tend to think we know what we want, but that's not the case most of the times. So this also was backed up with at least us doing user research. We went down there, we did research with the users. We were able to analyze the results and see, okay, we have this communication right now from the users, and this is the best way. This is one way in which we won them over, because they were able to see that it's in the market and this is what people want. So it's not about what they think people want, but what is it that people want. And then also now from my team here in Germany, we also had to have conversations. So how do we accommodate each other? Because we are a team. It cannot be them versus us. It's us. So we have to also be flexible in how we work. We had to align on the time zones because we also have to make things comfortable for the other team. So these are some of the things that we had to let go and embrace some so that we can become a full team, like a unified team, before we keep on moving. And this helped us a lot then. Tight deadlines, like we said again, the business units that are sales oriented have a lot of timelines and tight deadlines that they need to achieve because they have goals, financial goals that they need to meet. So how do you bring such a team or such group of people and allow them to be able to be in a space of innovation? And I think one of the key things here was first, empathy. We had to empathize with them and understand that they don't have that much time. And at the same time, as much as they would like to, they just can't do it. And this helped me, at least with the team, get 2 SMEs. So have their PO role shared. It's not really advisable, but in this case, we had to. So at least have one doing 50%, the other one doing 50%, so that at every time, whether one is available and the other one is not, the product moves on. Because everything that needs to happen is known. All the requirements are kept up to date. The changes are keep on being updated. And then one thing else, distributed workforce and across multiple time zones. This is also something that I just mentioned earlier on, that we have to align on a time that meets all our needs. It can be uncomfortable for some because some have to join in the evening, but the team has to come at a compromise. And we all have to agree. That's why it's important to be a unified team. Because then if we are unified, we make decisions for each other. like something that we'll be able to commit to and work together on. So yeah, I think that is how we handled it then, aligning on the time zones, on the time frames that are comfortable for each other. At the same time, aligning on the framework that we want to use, based also on evidence as to why it's the most important one, understanding the resistance, where is the resistance coming from, and then tackling that resistance from the root cause, so that we avoid bias, and also, you know, already having solutions to things that we're not aware of. So yeah. Thank you, Florence.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thank you. Borel Kenny, are you satisfied with that? Is it clear? And like I ask everyone, please tell us who you are. Borel. Hello, Borel. Okay. You can also write it on the chat later if you want. The next question, I'm checking to see if people's hands are up. Please raise your hands if you have something to ask or contribute. I will meanwhile read the next question in the chat, which is, in agile projects, priorities often shift rapidly. How do you balance changing requirements while ensuring business value? I think it's a good one for Escata.
So this now, how will I set this up? So if you can, right, in the in agile, you have the product owner is responsible for the product backlog. It defines what is the product vision, and he has to get commitment, right? Not only because the team has to commit to deliver a given the value that is expected by the stakeholders, and you can't just be taking things and adding in the backlog without proper keeping, how will I put it, keeping that delivery constant. So first, as the product owner, you need to ensure that you prioritizing the appropriate requirement based on the discussions you're having with the different stakeholders. You're not just bringing things because this person asks that, okay, I want this, you just take and say, okay, this is what we're going to work on. You need to communicate as well clearly to the different stakeholder the implication that changing the current backlog or bringing an item higher in the backlog will have on the product delivery as a whole. So the product owner needs to drive. He is the CEO of the product, so he needs to ensure that he decide what goes in, what goes out, what is prioritized and what is not, and sharing that how do I say, sharing that with all the stakeholders, making sure that they're aligned to this, such that they can deliver the product that will maximize the value to the end, right? So the communication between the stakeholders that are requesting for this feature and what the end user, or what will bring value to the end user, is clearly communicated across the different stakeholders.
Thanks. Thank you, Escata. Thank you very much. And the next question is, can you share a time when an agile project didn't go as planned? What were the key takeaways?
So is this question focused on the agile way, or as in agile as a delivery method, or basically just any project that we have done in agile that hasn't worked or that didn't go as planned?
I think you can choose which one you want to answer. Both apply.
Because I'm thinking, and then in the nature of the products that we tend to work with, for instance, in pharma, and also in the space we are in, for me in particular here would be, not every project that we start succeeds. And the intention of us even to exist as a lab is to kill as much as possible before they waste money for the organization. So that's why we very rapidly 1 year focus on proving if this thing works or it doesn't work and kill it. And that's also something that we are measured on. How many did you kill? Because then you're also able to clean the shaft and take out the useless ones and leave the ones with the most potential. That being said, there are projects that we have taken on, and sometimes you see that there's potential in this project and that it can actually do really create impact. So, for instance, last year we were working on an initiative or on a project that, first of all, this technology, we searched, has anyone applied it like this? Nobody has applied it like this. We said, okay, then there's room for us to apply this. So we go ahead and do our research, and we start building this algorithm to see how it can be able to bring us the value we need to bring for the business. We did build this product to a level that we didn't even know it would get to. And even the stakeholders were shocked that, oh, this product actually works. But then we hit a roadblock. And the roadblock is not that the product cannot work. The roadblock is not that the product is not good enough. The roadblock is that we have FDA and we have all these other agencies that require you to be able to verify that this product can work. And for you to do that, because it's things to do with humans, it has to take a long time for you to gather evidence, for you to put it in the hands of the patients to use this so that you can validate. And this takes years. So it means that the business has to be willing to go into this, invest in the next 4 years or 5 years just to gather data with the GPR and everything that is set up in Europe that blocks you from getting access to data. So it came to a point where when we are doing the handover and having this difficult discussion, this is potential, it is not in the market yet. We actually do have something that can work, but is it valuable enough for the business to go and invest this amount of years and also this amount of money into it? Is it worth it? And this is a discussion that, as much as it pains the team, because we've put in effort, we've worked on this product, and it's actually, we were all surprised with the output because we didn't expect that it would work. It worked. But then now we've proved a concept. We've proved that this technology can work. Is the business ready to invest in it? And sometimes these are some of the reasons as to why projects die. Not because they're not viable, not because the framework is wrong, not because the method was wrong or good, but just because the business has to make the decision that makes more sense for them right now. And they have to look at the opportunity cost and make that decision. And sadly, some projects are tanked like that. Hopefully that maybe we will be able to, when the time comes, we'll have the opportunity to do it. Sometimes maybe we go ahead and discover that this technology doesn't exist and we need to do research. And in us doing this research, we have to partner with a lot of different entities across the world who are tapping into this scientific research. And that means that this project, however, how we want to do it, may not see light in the next 10 years or so. Is this something that the team is willing to also stay put and work on these projects for the next 10 years? Definitely no, because the setup is you want to work on more projects, different challenges. Every day, there's a new version of AI that is popping down, new version of large language model. If you breathe like this, there's DeepSeek, there's that. And the tech community wants to tap into all this. So everybody wants to have a change once in a while in the projects that they do. So from my perspective, I would say we have had a lot of initiatives being killed. We are happy that this happens, but sometimes we're also sad because it's not that the project wouldn't work, it's because maybe the business has to make the decision that values the business potential more compared to the other. Yeah. Thank you, Florence.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And I'm actually wondering what that looks like in the banking space where Escata works. Do you have this kind of situation?
Yes. So one thing, right? it's the agile framework failing and project going through this framework failing. The first scenario, it's in the bank, there are a whole lot of restrictions, right? Around how things are done, how projects are managed. And it's an it's an industry that's been existing for quite a long time. And it's not really agile, as I would say, right, in terms of adopting change. So there are moments where, new fresh guys come into the company. They're like, oh, we know all of this. We've been hearing about agile. Let's start this and start using it and seeing the benefits. And you know what? They start the project, then management like, man, what are you guys doing? We're not adopting this, just kill that. So that is the context where you have that framework anyway, not delivering the expected value, or it's been killed before it even starts. And then there are projects that executed through this framework, with in the banking environment that have been, it's influenced by a lot of external factors, especially the regulators. So they will come and say, okay, you know what, we need this, but they don't give you everything. They say, this is what we need you to align to. They give you half-baked requirements. Now you start working on this, right? Then you know what, 6 months after the light, say, no, you know what, all those we've been working on, we need you guys to now start working on this. These are the new set. We've gone around, we've seen changes in our systems. We've decided that we're adopting this. They bring it. So you see, if you go in agile, you see that, man, you can't just wait for the regulator to bring what to come up when they're comfortable and say, okay, these are the things that you need to start working. So it's in itself, it makes things a little bit challenging. So that, I'm not saying impossible, but challenging. So there are scenarios where for the bank also, right, implementing agile, they're tweaking it in one form or the other. So in the industry where I work, or the company where I work up, it's a huge company. So there are different teams that manage different applications. So you have agile teams that are responsible for managing this set of applications, and then they get their requirement right and manage it in an agile approach. But now the way this requirement come in, right, we have to make sure that it's frozen before it gets into their basket. Then now they prioritize is working with other teams, deliver that requirement. And with different teams managing different backlogs, it's always challenging to harmonize all together. Some people are ready, some are not ready to deliver a solution that has to provide an end-to-end value to the end user. So there are these challenges that come in, especially in the world of in the banking sector. So that makes agile difficult to adopt in certain cases. And also the fact that it's highly regulated, and the regulator, they are the boss, they decide what they want, when to provide documents. You just have to align. And sometimes you can keep a sprint going forever because you are waiting for the regulator to provide you the final spec, or to tell you that, okay, you know what, we have the connectivity ready to start testing this platform. So you have all of these challenges that come in, and the teams find different ways on how they can work and manage this. And this, anyway, they're adapting agile in their own way, let me put it this way, to be able to manage this environment that I would have loved to say uncertain, but that is not the word in this case. But to manage the expectation from the different stakeholders that are part of this ecosystem. Yeah, back to you, Florence.
Very interesting. Seeing the same question from the pharma industry and the banking industry. It's really interesting to see. Thank you both. Okay, Borrell says he tried to introduce himself earlier, but he had issues with his mic. Okay, Borrell, feel free to also write something on the chat. I'm checking to see if there are other questions. Anyone in the audience wants to ask a question or contribute something?
Maybe I can say one point. There's this question that you asked: in agile project, priorities often shift rapidly. How do you balance changing requirements while ensuring business value? And I remember Iskata answered to this, and this is the whole idea of agile. It is built like that so that it can accommodate the changing and shift in priorities, because this shift is expected to happen after inspection. Because after you've built whatever you've built, you have your increment. You go show your stakeholders, and then they say, "Oh, we want it this way, we want it that way, we don't want this, we don't want that," and you take this change and incorporate it into your next sprint. So instead of waiting for 1 month or 6 months for you to get changes in priorities, you get to check with your stakeholder every 2 weeks. So is this still the same thing you want? Do you want to change here and there? And then it gives room for this so as you move with the new sprints, you're incorporating the changes that are changing and that are coming. Yeah. So that's the whole concept as to why Agile is built the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good reminder, actually. I think we forgot that agile as an approach is meant to address these kinds of situations. Thanks for that reminder. Okay, let me check if anyone else has raised their hand. If not, then I have one last one for you both. Can you remember what is one of the funniest situations you have encountered when it comes to trying to work in Agile with your teams? Whether it is that they're new to Agile or they've been doing it for a long time. Can you remember any funny anecdote that you'd like to share with us?
Let me step in here. We are quoting waterfall, calling it agile. So in my team, right? We have this approach. They're like, okay, you know what? We need to do things agile. You guys need to start using Confluence, Jira to document requirements. And I'm like, okay, so are we just going to be using Jira to document requirement? What framework are we going to use to do this? They said, no, man, you just need to use Jira to document requirements. I'm like, okay. So you getting the requirements, documented it on Jira, and then one team, right, will come and ask you to provide the signed BR. Then you're like, man, why was I documenting the requirements in Jira if you're going to be asking me a signed BRD? So I have this, anyway, this is a fight I'm fighting every day. So, the best word is like AI. Everyone wants to say, okay, I'm doing something in AI, but how many of those are actually doing things in AI? So it's when transformation come, in some cases, some people just like, you know what, we're just going to call this our waterfall thing that we're doing agile. And you see, it has nothing to do with agile. So it's funny in some ways, but when you really understand the benefits that agile brings, it's always important to communicate this right around to the business. But the challenge with this is when this is coming bottom top, it's always challenging because management like, you know what, we're not going to go with this approach. We're fine with the way we're doing things. But when this come top bottom, at least it's easily embraced. So, and I'm said my context is a little bit different. No, the banks have been doing the things that I've been doing. It's money. You don't joke with people's money, You can't just go and be testing things with people's money. So I understand the context within which is just to bring that in here.
Maybe to pick it up, I think Florence has a technical issue, not so sure. But you've given me a good laugh, that I must say. When we talk about Agile and we say it's important so that our stakeholders can always give us feedback. it comes to a point when the feedback is useless. So hear me out. You have stakeholders who, one, they're not aligned, and number two, they are giving you feedback based on opinions, their own self opinions. And by the time you realize it, you're like, okay, we have these user requirements and all these things, and it's based on two people and their opinions on how they want and preferences on how they want things to be done. And this is challenging because most of the times you find that if you're working in a medical product, not all of us have a medical background. So we have the SME, and we expect that the SME would be speaking from a space of one, understanding, and from a space of know-how and knowledge, and not just according to him, but the business requirements. Sometimes the stakeholders go rogue, and then they decide that they want this based on their own ideas and their own way of doing things. And this is always not good, because we were in such a situation with my team, and we are like, okay, we have this constant feedback loops with our stakeholders. At least in these 2 weeks, we have a chance that if we come together, we get SME feedback. But then at the same time, we have reviews. So in the review, they come in, either it's a political show of power, where you have someone saying,
I'm the boss.
I'm the boss. I am the one who has the biggest know-how. This is how things should be. And then we're like, okay, you go and make that, and then you come back, they say, no, this is not what we wanted. In fact, that day I was just saying this as an example. I didn't mean it like that. So we were like, okay, we need to find a way that these people give us feedback and they document it and put their name against it, so that when we are coming back, there's no, oh, I didn't mean it, I didn't say it. And when we realized that this feedback was based on two people's opinions, we were like, this can't happen again. Because now we are in the bigger round, and we are like, you have to align. We need requirements from you that are aligned and signed from all of you, so that when we are moving forward, we don't take 2 steps front and then 20 steps back. So this may happen as much as Agile provides for specifically for room for feedback and constant improvement. Sometimes this feedback needs to be filtered. And you need to have people who are aware of the impact that their feedback has, because it impacts the whole product and how the product is shaped. And if it's not just for them, then every other person is in trouble. So I laugh like this because we started saying Elmo. So Elmo is a phrase we use when people talk too much. So I'm safest as a Scrum Master to Elmo people. So I would say, please, we would love to Elmo this topic, and let us pick it up again so that we can be able to handle other topics. And my team is always like, we need to Elmo this stakeholder. So that is like our funny situations we find ourselves in. But then we also have to learn a lot in the process, that the stakeholder is not always right sometimes, and that their opinions are not always the final thing sometimes. And how do we as a team get in an environment where we can question this, confidently and also timely, so that we don't lose a lot of momentum and time and value in the process of following people's opinions. So yeah.
Okay, thanks to you both for those funny stories. I think things that people working in Agile would encounter. It's good to hear also how it goes in different places, and also how to handle this. We have 2 last questions. I'll start with, how do you structure then estimate requirements, user stories, epics from your backlog?
Is that to me?
If you want to take it.
So I can give it a go, and then Eskata can add. So first of all, we have to put together a product backlog. And how do we put together a product backlog? When a project comes on board or an idea comes on board, we do a lot of groundwork in regards to building a roadmap, a vision for the product. We know that this is not constant, it may change, but that's just having the possibility of how this product may look like gives us an opportunity to know, then how do we test that we are able to build that thing? What are some of the first steps that we need to do for us to be able to ascertain that this is possible? And then from that chunk, we get our requirements for the first, let's say, sprint or so. So this product backlog is maintained by the product owner who has the bigger vision of the product together with the business. So then I work with the product owner in this case to break down these requirements and prioritize which one comes first, which one gives us much more value if we're able to pull it off compared to the rest. And then after we have this list of things or requirements that we need to do, we go ahead and now build user stories. And user stories basically is just a description that allows us to know what is required for us to say that this particular requirement is done. So for instance, we may say as a product manager or as a product owner, I would like to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if this ticket is done, this is the functionality that should be present. And we're able to build these user stories together with the product owner and put this. So that is as much as the product owner can do. When we go into the sprint planning, the developers own the sprint. So the developers themselves are able to go into the, with the prioritized list of the product, pull these things into their sprint backlog and say, within the next 2 weeks, we can be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for instance, in this sprint that is running, if we have engineering tasks and maybe we have data science tasks, or we have user research tasks, these different developers in these different skill sets will pull these things in. So for us to move the product forward, for us to be able to achieve the sprint goal that we set together, we need to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have the product backlog that has to be maintained with me and the product owner. And we prioritize this list so that when we go to sprint planning, we have the list on the Jira board, and we're able, the developers are able to pull into the sprint the most toppest of all, the most prioritized of these items. And we just don't go into the sprint blindly. We have to come up with a sprint goal. So whatever we want to increment, we want to build in the next 2 weeks, that is our goal. So we set that goal, and the goal has to be one goal. We cannot have 2 goals within one goal or 3 goals within one goal. It has to be one goal. So if it's to finish this system, it has to be that. And then now the developers sit down and say, this is how much we need to do for us to be able to achieve this. Then we break it down from there. So that's how the estimation works. The developers do this based on what needs to be done and how much they can do. So we track this throughout the sprint to see how much was actually done. And then based on this, the next sprint, we now are able to estimate fairly and not be overambitious, because now we are able to see that the tempo of the team and the work that we do and how we are able to quickly or efficiently do things. Yeah, I don't know if this covers the question. Is this helpful?
I think it does very well. I'm going to ask the person who asked the question to introduce themselves and tell us if they are satisfied. William. Can you tell us who you are for those who don't know you? Hello, William. Okay, while waiting for him, I will then ask the last question. There was one from Borrell. What are the requirements to become a business analyst? I missed that one. Actually, from my experience, there is no prerequisite to become a business analyst. Anybody can become a business analyst with the proper training. We offer this training also at IIBA Cameroon, and sometimes just on the job. That was my case. I learned business analysis on the job. I was asked to help the team be a translator between the business and the technical team, clarify what they express as needs. That's how it started. Just clarify what these people are saying that they want and let us know so that we can build solutions. And that's how I started, really. So you can start on the job with zero knowledge of business analysis, but you can also get trained and equip yourself better to be a business analyst. So please feel free to get in touch with us, Borel, either myself or William in the chat, and we can help you with that. So the last, okay, William can't speak where he is. So William is the IBA Cameroon chapter. What is the difference between a business analyst and a product owner? I think this is a good one for Escata because he did say earlier that he's currently he works very closely with the product owner.
Okay. So there are different contexts within which I will take to give the differences, right, between the business analyst and the product owner. So first of all, right, the focus. So the business analyst focus on understanding the need and solving business problems, right? The PO is the voice of the customer. It represents the customer. So responsibility. So the BA is responsible for eliciting, analyzing the requirements, and then the PO is responsible for defining and prioritizing the product backlog. In terms of what is delivered by the PO versus what is delivered by the BA, so a BA typically will do a BRD, business requirement document. The PO will have their refined backlog. The scope of what the BA does, right? The BA will be around about organization and operational changes within the organization, but the focus of the product owner is on the product. So now, obviously, BA will be doing their business analysis activities using. We will not be doing this in the agile context and standardly, but the PO actually work in a standard context, right? In terms of they have a framework within which they do the product owner activities, right? They work with target roles in a Scrum team, where the business analysts work with it in an organization. And then the scope of stakeholder engagement in terms of BA will have broader stakeholder engagement. He will mostly work with the end users, and I mean maybe their scope of the stakeholders that will engage will be much more refined. Yeah, I think those are the differences that are just coming in mind for distinguishing these two. But also, right, just to add to this, as a business analyst, you have great potential to transition into a PO. Because one thing is you understanding, you interacting with the end user, you the bridge between the business and technology, right? You understand the business problem, you can clarify that, you manage stakeholders and their expectation, which are some of the skills that are required to be a good PO, right? So it's easy as a business analyst to transition into a PO role. But one thing that you need to do is learn how to work in an agile context, right? Learn the agile framework, the different ceremonies within the agile framework, what value that you have to provide as a BA and how you're going to be interacting, as a PO, and how you're going to be interacting with the other roles within the Scrum team. So that is what I can say around the differences and how you can transition from being a BA into a PO. I don't know if Elizabeth, you have anything to add?
I was listening to you and you've covered quite a lot. I like the comparison because you're speaking from a perspective of a business analyst who knows and maybe even has experience with agile ways of working, particularly Scrum. So yeah, I think you've covered a lot of things. And also you've mentioned something that the scope of work as a product owner, you are just focused on this one product. This is your focus, maximizing value for this one product. And it's usually advisable you are a product owner for one product so that
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have, other competing priorities. But I guess as a business analyst, you have the opportunity to work in a broader, perspective and have more insight into more products. So I guess this more is a narrow, PO is more narrow in a Scrum team. And business analyst, you have in the world is your oyster. You have a lot of freedom. So that's good.
Yeah. And like the thing is like, do you have capacity? This is a new project. Then you start
Yeah.
figuring what is it about, who are those you have to engage, how you're going to gather the requirement. But with, as you mentioned, the PO, it's more you're working on this product. You're going to be and coming to, let me just say something within my context, right? We have business analysts like myself that sit across that cover requirements that are cross organization, right? So, and then we have POs that focus on specific, I don't want to say product, but in this case, the applications, right? So we have for the core banking, we have a PO that is responsible for managing all the items that come in for delivery on the core banking. On channel side for client access, we have a PO that is responsible for guiding all the requirements and now running the delivery of this requirement in an agile approach. But us now standing business analysts across the organization, we gather this requirement, and a requirement actually cut through a lot of different applications. Like the scope of the impact of the application will be this individual application that have POs that will now take the requirements that we provide in our requirement document and now work on it in an agile fashion.
So you come even before the product owner, because as a product owner, you're expected to collect these requirements from the business. So you are the business that we're collecting the requirements from, I guess. And then they're able to build it in an agile way. So you get results faster, test things faster, and then give results, create value for the organization. Interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I know agile, from my perspective, its application, right? Really in its shape and form, right? It's the same. But now the context, there is always this shift around who is ultimately getting the value, the requirement from the end user. So in my context, what I just explained, we are now we are the one face. In fact, we're the business, if you can put it that way. But still, we're not the business. We're working with the product managers. The product managers actually are those that interact with the end user, get the requirements from the end user. One of this end user is the regulator, get the requirement. It's not the end user. One of those defining what we're supposed to be working on is the regulator. We get the requirement from them. Me as a business analyst will now go through this requirement, identify all the systems, right, impacted by this change, document this requirement, get the business to provide the approvals on this requirement. Then I send this down now. So what I do is when I get that documented, get approval, I create epics on Jira. So I will create an epic that will go now to different application owners. Like I'll create an epic that will go to the core banking. The PO of the core banking will take that epic, go with it within their Scrum team. They're going to define user stories to address the requirement that are defined in the epic, and then work on the user story in an agile approach.
Yeah.
So context, it's
context is the monster. You just need to know which context you're operating in, and then you'll have an easier time to maneuver your way around. But I like the discussion because there's so much similarity And in one way or another, you realize that we work together very closely, just on different spectrums, because like you say, Scrum is a smaller team, and then we have other organizations. So something that affects you affects us at the end of the day down here, because those requirements and everything else that is shifting is impacting the product. So yeah,
Exactly.
thank you.
Thank you as well. I see Florence is having some internet issues.
Yeah, maybe we give her some few minutes to join back.
Yeah, I think we've covered the questions that are on the chat. I don't know if there's any other question.
Do we have any questions in the room?
Don't be shy, guys.
Or comments. Doesn't have to be a question.
Yeah.
No, no question now. I think you are asking the most of question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think when Florence comes, we will be ending the call either way, right? And maybe we could just take time to share learnings, if there's any learning.
Yeah. I have some people on the call that I know personally. So there's a question. So epics must it be a set of tasks doable in only 2 weeks?
No.
And from my experience, an epic can you can deliver
One
one
of-
epic in multiple sprints.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Go. Okay, you want to take this?
No. Please go.
Okay.
I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay. So, for example, in my context, right? When I get the requirements, documents, it have a BRD, I go ahead and create epics. So an epic will be, for example, enhance maybe the core banking system to be able to process this particular set of transactions. And implementing, when the core banking PO takes that epic, they might split it in about maybe 15 or so user stories. Now, when they take this user story, within their Scrum team, they prioritize they prioritize which of the user story will go within what sprint. And then now they define the sprint goal, set of those user stories, pull it into a sprint, work on it, and deliver. So they might deliver that one user epic, right, in about 3 or 4 sprints. So an epic must not have set of tasks that is deliverable within 2 weeks, but every task that goes into more. Let me circle this back to every task that go into a sprint must not be delivered within that sprint. So there might be challenges where they're not able to deliver all the tasks within the sprint. These tasks will go back to the product backlog, right? Or the user story will go back to the product backlog.
Yes, hello. I'm really sorry. I think I got kicked out. Hope I'm not cutting a passionate conversation there. But yeah, we have already crossed 8 p.m., so we should be rounding off. Thank you both very much for experience. It has been very enriching. Thank you so much. We have one last part to our session this evening, which is our quiz with opportunities to win prizes. But before we do that, we would like to take a group photo to commemorate this event. And for that, we need people to switch on their cameras, because for a photo, we need to see faces. So for those who feel comfortable and who are in a good place to do so, please switch on your cameras and let's do this group photo. Good. Hi, Cyril. Hi, Steed. Hello, Frida. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Florence. Hi, Scott. Hi,
Hi.
Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces.
Ah. Okay, I was just waiting to see if anyone else will be able to open the camera. For anyone who's just joined, please open your camera if you're comfortable and let's take a group photo. I see Borel is trying to do that. Great, great. Okay, let's do this. Give us your best smile.
Tell us when it's done, Florence.
Okay, one last one. Don't let the smile expire. That's it, done. Thank you so much. Okay. With that, I'm moving to the last part, which is our quiz. Cyril knows that part very well, so he's already smiling and getting ready. Okay, let me resume sharing. For our quiz tonight, we have 4 questions with 4 prizes. The first prize will be a 10% discount to one of our study groups online, whichever you prefer, in English or in French. And the second would be for a discount to the study group in French on site. For now, we don't have English study groups on site. That will come later. But yeah, this one will be for the French version. The third prize would be a discount to our BA meetup on site, which is the event, this event we're having, but in person. Discount to that. And finally, the fourth prize, you'll be able to tell your BA story on IIBA Cameroon's platform. So imagine that the organization for business analysis is telling your business analysis story on their platforms. How powerful is that? Right, so these are our 4 prizes, 4 questions. Are you ready? I hope so, because it's going to be about accuracy and speed. You need to answer the question correctly, and you need to be the first one to give the rules. You can give your answer by unmuting yourself and saying the answer, or writing it in the chat. Whichever one I pick up first, which is correct, will win. It's that simple. So let's go. Escata and Elizabeth, you're not allowed to answer, just so you know. Okay, the first question. Does anybody remember what was Elizabeth's degree? And put in chat. Does anybody remember what was Elizabeth's degree? What did she say she studied? This is a tough one for everyone. It looks like nobody remembers that particular fact. But the answer is, nice try, Camille. She is currently doing a master's, but what she did first was a degree in communication and public relations. So that was the answer. But don't worry, the other chances. What does Escata do apart from business analysis work? He said he does something else. What is that? Reader says coding. And Camille says to ensure that Frida doesn't get the point. But yes, coding is the correct answer. Thank you, Frida. You are our #1 winner. Congratulations. To Camille and Cyril answered afterwards. Okay, the next question then. Back to Ellie. As the 3 pillars of Scrum, which she repeated 2 or 3 times during the session. Three pillars of Scrum. The 3 pillars of Scrum. Let me help you a bit. One of them was transparency. What are the other 2? Okay, Frida says adaptation. All right. The person who gets the last pillar. All right. Frida got adaptation inspection. Correct. Correct. Frida, you win again. I think you're really on fire today. And you have no contestant on that. So well done. You get to win a second prize, unless there's a tie afterwards. All right. For the last 2 prizes, the last 2 chances. Escata said he works very closely with what role? There's a role he mentioned that in the current transformation that they're undergoing, he works very closely with what role? Ha! Let me see if anybody wants to try that. Because Frida is like, me, I want to take all of those prizes. Yes, the answer is product owner. Product owner. Okay. PO, product owner, yes. Now, Frida has won 2 prizes already. So I think she will be generous enough to let that one go. And Alex is one of the team. Hey, Alex, no prize for you. And Camille is the 3rd person who got the answer right. So yes, Camille, congratulations. And you had to thank Frida afterwards for her to give away her prize. Be that easy. Okay, and the very last one. Let's see, with those of us who are left here, the only 2 possible winners are Frida and Camille. So you get a chance to win an extra prize. Elizabeth said in her current innovation process, business analysis is not at all incorporated. This is true or false? Is that what she said? In her current process, in her current work, business analysis is not incorporated. Yes, the answer. Yes, the answer is false. The answer is false. So congratulations to Camille who won another prize. And with that, we have Frida is contesting the decision. Yeah, Elizabeth did say that there is no role as a business analyst in her current organization. However, in the way that they work, business analysis is an integral part of the way they work. And it's even distributed across 3 roles, product owner, scrum master, and product manager. So Camille got that correct. So well done to Camille. And thank you guys for staying and playing the game. The last thing I would say before we close is at the end, when this session ends, you will see on your browser a survey. So please fill that survey. It takes less than 2 minutes, and it's just to help us get feedback, as is the culture in Agile, so that we can continuously improve, which is also an Agile value. And with that, thank you guys so much. I wish you a wonderful Friday evening, and yeah, enjoy your weekend. Those who want to stay and chat, feel free to do so, but for the rest, this is goodbye from me.
Thank you, Florence. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello, Camille.
Hello.
Are you still there?
Ah, ma connexion Internet m'avait lâché. Je n'ai pas suivi les derniers instants.
Ah, d'accord. OK. Je disais juste au revoir et qu'il y aura un lien pour donner le feedback sur la session. Quand vous allez fermer Zoom, il y aura un lien une page qui va apparaître pour donner le feedback sur la session. On pourra améliorer. C'est tout.
Ok, d'accord. Bon, à la prochaine.
Bonne soirée donc. Au revoir.
Au revoir.